Hi, this is Rich Dackman, CEO of Brighter Bites. You heard my story on episode 75. I'm dropping in today to invite you to Wine for a Cause. It is a Brighter Bites wine auction that will be held over the Memorial Day weekend. This event will help fund Brighter Bites' coronavirus initiative to ensure at-risk families nationwide can access the fresh food they need to stay healthy during these unprecedented times. Please visit brighterbites.org to learn more and register for our Wine for a Cause virtual silent auction. Now sit back, grab a glass of wine, and enjoy today's show.
Welcome to the Produce Moms Podcast, where we believe there is a produce mom in all of us. I'm Lori Taylor, founder and CEO of the Produce Moms. For 10 years, I sold fresh produce to over 300 grocery stores in the U.S. And today, my team and I are fully focused on inspiring people to eat more fruits and vegetables. This show is just one of the ways that we hope to inspire you and your family to eat more produce and live a better life. If you like what you're hearing on the podcast, join our community of almost 40,000 in all 50 states and over 30 countries by visiting theproducemoms.com/subscribe. And be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes. Thanks for being here. Enjoy today's show. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Produce Moms Podcast, and today we are welcoming back a repeat guest, Mr. Seth Karm. Seth is the CEO of Salad Savoy. Salad Savoy has been a long-standing partner of the Produce Moms. Seth himself, I would consider him a business partner. I would consider him a colleague, a mentor, and most importantly, he's one of my friends. So it's great to welcome you to the show today, Seth. Welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be back here. I feel like I'm in rare air having a repeat visit here with the Produce Mom.
Yeah, you really are. I mean, you got to think there's only 52 guests a year, and you were episode 11, and now we're having you back on. We're gearing up for episode 100. I don't know if you realize this. You're going to be episode 99 on the Produce Moms Podcast.
It's my lucky number. I like it.
That's great. That's great. So for folks that are listening today that aren't familiar with Salad Savoy, tell us a little bit more about the company. The theme of today's show for everyone that's tuning in, we're going to be talking about how the COVID-19 pandemic has really disrupted everyone in agriculture, but how it's specific, using Seth's story as an example of how it's, affected farms like theirs. So Seth, tell us a little bit more about Salad Savoy and your role with the company.
Well, Salad Savoy has actually been around in one way, shape, or form since 1984. And we just started initially shipping Salad Savoy leafy vegetable, which, if you're not familiar with it, is violet and white heads, open-headed brassica, which some people might confuse with a flowering kale or a deco kale, but it's the separate genetics with that plant. And that was kind of the initial item that we started shipping back then. And we were pretty much strictly just selling Salad Savoy until about 1992. And we had brought on at that point the Bright Lights Chard. And that was when the whole idea of color, taste, and nutrition as our mantra came into fruition. And at that point in time, we have picked up a few new items that really feature white tablecloth items, mostly in the food service industry, but catering to very discriminating tastes and someone who's looking for eye appeal as well as flavor appeal in their items. And so color, taste, nutrition has been the backbone of all the items we've brought on board, like the Tuscan kale, the red chard, and the green chard that we brought on. We had our steaming greens going for a while, which was a braising blend, which we're always trying to get back into production. And then our latest item is our lollipops kale sprouts. And that is a hybrid item of a red kale and a Brussels sprout. And right around 2004, we started shipping our colorful cauliflower, the green, orange, and purple cauliflower, which has been a fantastic boon to our business.
It's just rose to be one of the most popular things for sure.
Well, and I credit the foresight of John Moore, who's actually the founder of the company. And he, back in 2004, says, we're going to start selling colored cauliflower. And
amazing. Yeah.
But for us, here, it's like, okay, I guess we're doing this. And the first few years were very difficult, and we lost a lot of money trying to get this off the ground. And people at that point were familiar with the green cauliflower. There were some shippers out there that were working with that one. And it's at that point in time, the first 2 years, like I said, were a bloodbath. But after that, slowly but surely, year over year, we've seen very nice growth on that front. And I think it's gotten to the point where, you have that commodity or the specialty vegetable, and then it eventually becomes a specialty commodity, and then eventually becomes a full stop commodity. And I think we've gotten to that point now where we're really moving enough to where we can call that a real trade commodity.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's just been a fantastic, it's a great arc, and we obviously love to see it. And it's probably become a very significant percentage of our business in a period of 15 years, which is fantastic.
Right.
And it tastes great.
Tell us a little bit more about where it absolutely does. I love it. And one thing we always promote too at the Produce Moms as it relates to any of the colorful vegetables that Salad Savoy grows. This is a great way to get kids excited or, interested at a new level in eating their vegetables. It can be as simple as transitioning from your classic white cauliflower to a colorful purple cauliflower. All that excitement can make the difference as in whether or not children consume the veggie. And that's really one of my favorite things about your products, and watching the way they have, brought increased consumption in my own household with my children, and even me and other adults too.
Well, you have to make it fun. You have to make food appealing. You have to make it fun. And cauliflower, as a child myself, I had white cauliflower. We had it probably boiled, and it made the house stink. And it just was such a dreadful item to have. And I think that people have gotten away from the boiling of certain vegetables. You do boil away a lot of that nutrition when you prepare food that way. So, a nice quick steam, roasted, grilled, barbecued, and obviously with cauliflower, these days, riced, and you've got people using cauliflower flour, and there's so many different usages to have that. And if you have fun when you're making food and it tastes good, you want to eat more of it. And you definitely need that. This is an item that is very peak on the nutritional scale, and you can see that as that upswing in the last few years on cauliflower. People are saying, hey, this is great. You get the keto diet, you've got this paleo diet, and you want to kind of cut some of those starches out, a little bit of your diet, the carbohydrates, and this has just been a very healthy way to supplement people's nutrition with something a little bit healthier, and again, fun. And it's got that eye appeal to it. You put a multicolored medley of certain things out there, and people say, yeah, I like that. It's not just your basic white cauliflower. It's not just your basic broccoli and cauliflower medley. It's really something eye-popping.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And I agree with you. So let's talk now about what your life has been like since mid-March. When I think back on mid-March, we were gearing up for our Easter promotions, as one of your partners at the Produce Moms, and you guys were probably preparing to harvest a lot of that crop that you planted, thinking it was going to fabulous Easter brunches throughout the United States, whether they're at some of the most famous restaurants in New York City or in someone's home in Indianapolis, Indiana. So tell us a little bit more about what the journey's been like.
Well, it's a very interesting time, because actually on March 11th, which was, I believe, the day the World Health Organization declared this COVID a global pandemic, I had actually traveled down to Yuma, Arizona, which is where we were growing our crops for the winter season. And in that day, I looked and I just saw this beautiful crop, all these gorgeous colors of the Bright Lights chard, the violet and white salad savoy, all the colors of the cauliflower. And we have a beautiful crop. And we have great supplies leading up to Easter, which is traditionally a very good time for our business. And we planned a little bit more to be in front of that, and obviously take advantage of that increased demand for that period of time. So to see all that beautiful crop, and in the 2 days I was down there, the bottom just dropped out. And I think by the time I'd gotten back, it was about midnight on Friday night, it just seemed like there was panic had set in, that initial panic, and it really, I would say, it took hold probably the following Wednesday. And at that point, and again, as one of the shippers that gears, I would say 50-50 towards food service, you just saw that end of the business just completely fall away. And it's so disheartening to know that you have this beautiful crop that's ready to be harvested. We've got people to harvest it, and generally historical demand for that, and it's just gone. And we saw orders probably drop in half. And slowly but surely we've been getting back over the past 4 to 5 weeks, but it's nowhere near where we should be. I will say that. And it's been,
right.
We definitely lost a lot of crops. We had to disc a lot of crops down in Arizona, and we are just starting our Salinas season now, and it looks beautiful up here. I'm hoping that we can take advantage of an increasing market and hopefully increase demand. And we've obviously been working on finding new outlets for that product up here. But again, beautiful product here for the spring in Salinas to kick off the summer season. So we're excited, we're optimistic, we're hopeful, but the last 6 weeks have been a very stressful kind of nightmare. I mean, it really feels like a surreal nightmare.
Yep. Tell us a little bit more, Seth, if you're comfortable doing so. I mean, there's a lot in mass media about, everything that you just explained from the farmer's perspective. There's also the stories about product being dumped, plowed over. And I think there's a lack of understanding from the consumer's point of view as to why product isn't just always donated. Can you explain a little bit more about why some of the crop unfortunately had to be dumped as opposed to donated? It's no one. And also I'm going to, before you answer that, I want to make sure that everyone listening understands no one donates more food than farmers. I mean, they are the Ask Feeding America, ask your local food bank. If you're located in a region where there are farmers, the farmers themselves are making the donations. Otherwise, their partners in the supply chain, like wholesale distributors, are making those donations. So, I want to certainly establish that first, but please go, if you're comfortable doing so, I'd love for you to explain to people why that happens, why it happened the way it did.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I think that we have to, even as farmers, separate reason from emotion, and at a certain point you just have to roll with the punches. And I think initially when this deal started to hit, a lot of product that we had already packed at that point in time ended up in food banks just because we couldn't find a home for it. And it was a nice, easy fix. And obviously that the food banks have seen an incredible demand spike with obviously the loss of people's jobs, loss of people's incomes, and they're an invaluable service for really keeping nutrition in the population of America. So I have nothing but respect and gratitude for their operations. And we did ourselves. We had, I would say, tens, hundreds of thousands, probably 100 and some thousand that went to the food bank initially with product that was in our inventory. Yes. So that was the first hit. Beyond that, oftentimes it just doesn't make sense to pack product up, and you put cooling into it, you put packing into it, you put materials into it, a carton, a case, a tote, whatever. And by the time you pack it, you're to donate that product, that's a massive loss. And
you got to think at each stage of that, to put that into, more of a consumer jargon, you've got a cost of materials and you've got a cost of labor with each of those stages that you said, harvesting the crop.
And you have to get it to the
taking
location.
it to a packing house. Yeah. Taking it to a packing house, cooling it. And then to your point, yes, delivering it to the food bank. That all of that is additional incurred costs. And, farming is a business, just like any other business. These are people's livelihoods. And it's not within the realm of possibility in a situation like this pandemic where farmers were already facing. I think one of the stats I saw, Seth, was $6 billion of loss in 1 week of product. I mean, just from American farmers, that just in fruits and vegetables. I mean, that's crazy. But just on your farm, I mean, you've said, that's realistic, because just with your stakehold, you're talking 7 figures of loss.
Well, and I feel bad. I mean, we are one of the smaller shippers, I would say, in the industry. We do a great job on the few items that we do. There are other bigger players out there that I can't even conceive of the numbers that they are looking at. You know, relative to that scale, we are probably a drop in the bucket of some of the larger operations. Those larger operations, they were sending truckloads. You know, and you figure a truckload is 30 pallets of product, and they're sending truckloads into these food banks locally in Arizona, and they can't take it. They don't have room. There are so many shippers that are throwing them truckload after truckload. The guys, you know, I've talked to the guys in the food bank, and they say, we've already gotten 5 truckloads in of full product, 150 pallets. And that was by 10 a.m. They said, we can't take any more today. So they're shipping it to Phoenix. They're shipping it to San Diego. They're trying to get it out to Atlanta, to all these other food banks. And I think that when you have a nationwide network, something like Feeding America, they're good at placing that, but you really can't move that much product that quickly. And there was so much product that was being donated in that short period of time, right as this hit, that they were maxed out. And I think now that everyone's kind of reacted after that initial burst of donations, it's gotten harder. And I think which is a really tough situation, because now the food banks really do need food, and specifically vegetables, which I think is why the USDA is introducing their new program to hopefully assist people that have product out there, that they can get product to these food banks. The U.S. government will buy it, and that's one way to take care of people. And obviously, you've got to have a healthy population. We don't want people starving. We've got to take care of our own. And in this case, the community is the United States. We're all in this same situation together. And I just hope that we are able to utilize some of these programs to be able to get our goods. And obviously, it solves 2 problems at once. We got hungry people, and we got food in the field. But we just can't afford to pack that up for free. We'd be broke in 6 months.
Right.
So it's a nice program to get set up to basically put needs and haves together. And I'm hoping we can actually take advantage of that and actually be able to provide our product to people out there.
I hope so too. So that's obviously a new opportunity, new relationship, I guess. It's, obviously we want our restaurants back to being operational. We want our grocery stores, to not be so, overwhelmed with their responsibility in terms of, the supply chain was pretty much split prior to mid-March, 50-50, 50% food service, 50% grocery retail. That's how we were eating. And in a matter of just a couple of days, that all shifted to 100% retail, 0% food service. And it's unbelievable. So I just, you want to share anything on that? I mean, you work so closely with so many chefs.
Well, it's just so funny to say, not funny to think about, but it is funny. It's a question I've been asking people. And what was the last meal you had out? What was the last meal you ate out at a restaurant? And it's just, people kind of think back, and I think of actually the last meal I probably had, I sat by myself in an airport restaurant, and it's just kind of a depressing last meal to have had out of a restaurant, but it's, you're just traveling on business, whatnot. But it's really been an amazing thing to see how all these restaurants are just gone. And I love to eat out myself all the time. We probably go out 2 nights a week, and to have that just disappear, and to have that disappear for everyone, that experience of eating out is so sad. And
it's going to take a long time for things to be back to what they were, if they ever get to that point. It's and I hope they do. I'm feeding off your optimism here, Seth. I'm hopeful right along with you. But yeah, it's just going to take time.
Well, there's been a lot of optimism out there, and I know everyone wants to be back to where we were.
Yes.
And that's the the main thing is that everyone wants to go back out to restaurants. Everyone wants to go out and be social and be with their friends. And you juggle that in your head probably every day, the responsibility versus what we really want to do. And I think everyone wants things to get back to normal as quickly as possible. Obviously, professionally, yes, and personally, yes. So that is the number one goal, is to get back to that. In the meantime, you have to do what you have to do. And optimism is, I guess, blind optimism doesn't really pay the bills. So we have been taking this opportunity to try to open up new avenues with retail outlets, getting into new supermarkets, getting in with new processors to have our product in the bag to be in supermarkets. And if anything, we've kind of found that there's a real transformation going on in our business model. And I think anyone who's going to continue to weather the storm is going to have to do the same, because really produce is going in one direction right now, and that is into supermarkets. And
Yes.
Obviously there's no restaurants. Obviously there's curbside pickup and to-go orders, which we've slowly but surely, everyone in my family gets to choose one restaurant a week of their choosing. And that's been kind of nice, but you want to have that trust, and you want to have trust in the food supply, which is one thing that I think after pursuant to 2004, when we first had that E. coli scare, our whole business practices changed. And I think nowadays, and just to assure people out there in the trade, everything is run very tightly in our operation. We might be a smaller shipper, but we adhere to all the same standards as for instance, from the Leafy Greens marketing agreement, and swabbing machinery and wearing gloves. And you can't have zipper poles out there in the field, nothing that can contaminate or fall into product or otherwise contaminate anything that you do. And that's from top to bottom, from the time that our workers go out to the field in the morning and to the time that product leaves our dock in a finished carton. So there has been amazing work done in the last 15 years. And granted, it seemed very draconian at the beginning, where it's all these practices, and we got to do this, and we have to swab this machine 3 times a day, and we have to check the pH on this water that we dip our knives that we cut the produce with 3-4 times a day. And the end result has just been a very clean supply of food. And it's something that's really serving us well now, because it's all about getting down to the microbes and killing anything that's a foreign substance that shouldn't be there. So that is one thing we can actually rest a little bit easier on, I think, as far as assuring the trade, assuring people in general that you don't have to worry about produce, at least from certified shippers. And that's, there's obviously farmers market, and they don't have to adhere to the same exact standards. Obviously it's closer to where your house is, it's closer to your community, but you just don't have certain rules that you have to play by, which I've kind of, moaned about in the past. But at the same point, I'm grateful now that we do have those in place, because I can rest assured that we have very clean product that we're sending out to the trade, as well as being nutritious and healthy and gorgeous.
Isn't that the truth? And, that's one of our big, from the way the Produce Moms has pivoted in our content marketing, we really are bringing forward the core messaging that produce is safe and healthy. It's so important that people know that and have the ultimate confidence. As someone who has visited, your farms, other farms, it's definitely, I've seen it with my own eyes for the last 5 years as I've been working hand in hand with more growers and visiting the farms. But it's so in one way, none of your operation has changed, so to say, as it relates to food safety. There's that's always been the ultimate standard and goal within American agriculture. We've always worked to raise safe and healthy food.
Well, and I think there's times when even water, the water that you use, you might be municipal water, but now you have to test that water. You can't use overhead water on certain plants due to any kind of contamination. You have water testing you do 3 separate tests every time you test water before you water your crops. And it's, it does seem like it's sometimes a lot of work and a lot of record keeping and a lot of this and that, but it's, in the end, you have to have confidence in your food supply. And I think that's something that no one can really argue with. And obviously you see this with beef plants right now, and they're closing down because you have people that are working there. And it's just, if people don't have confidence in your food supply, you're not going to sell anything. And we want to make sure that people are confident that they are getting nothing but the finest from us.
That's right. That's right. Well, Seth, we are closing in on our time for today's show. So I want to make sure that, we have an opportunity to get any of your closing thoughts on record here. I mean, I definitely want to, I just want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your perspective. You and I talked to you right before Easter, and it was a pretty humbling moment for myself. And I'm glad that I was in a position where we could, work together. And I kind of put back on my saleswoman hat from my days sitting at the sales desk. And I really, when I look back on this pandemic, that's one of those most memorable moments that I'll remember, listening to you, realizing that a lot of this gorgeous veg that you guys had planted and harvested with the intention of, chefs and homes celebrating Easter. It wasn't going to have a place to go. And, that it's just, I don't know. I mean, it's just definitely one of those moments where I think that our brand partnership has certainly grown and evolved in a very short amount of time. And, listening to your thoughts today, I'm just like, wow. It's just, it leaves me almost without words as to what our American farmers have gone through and all of the agriculture operations have endured, in such a short amount of time with really no notice.
Well, and the word that keeps popping into my head is community. And I think to have this produce community and have voices like you that are representing the community and putting those assurances out there. And, and I've spoken with you about getting in touch with different outlets for our products. And it's really, I feel like this is a moment in time where community is getting a lot bigger. And a lot of the time, you find these strange bedfellows that you're talking to competitors and you're working together. And there's guys that are wanting to buy in Miami and Atlanta, and they want a little bit of product, but they can't get together. They're calling their competitors and let's share a truck and let's work together. And I think that sense of community is an amazing thing. And if anything, that's the bright spot that comes out of this whole pandemic is the community gets bigger and bigger. And I think that I look forward to so much being on the other side of this and taking that sense of community. And I hope we can hold on to it, but taking into the future that, you talk to your neighbor, go say hi to your neighbor across the street if you don't talk to them, and just embrace the people around you, embrace your competitors, embrace your customers. And that's, I just want to put a big hug around the world sometimes, just because we're all going through this together and we're all going to be a lot stronger for it. And I hope that's what we can take out of this.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Produce Moms Podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a featured guest, just send an email to Lori@theproducemoms.com. We know there is a produce mom in you because there's a produce mom in all of us. Join our community on Facebook and all social platforms. Help us change the way America eats. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.